I want to begin with it's a story, but it's not really a story. It really got me all revved up yesterday, and still my head's reeling from it. And it points to the world we live in today. It's not going to be something that's a comfortable issue, so hold your loins, please, okay?
Loins or comments?
Your comments as well. And if I say anything that's offensive to anyone, you'll send me later a private note chastising me, okay? But I this is the one time a day where I get to express myself. So I'm finishing a book now on the Rebbe and doctors. I wrote a book several months ago. I put together. It's really a compilation. That's why you guys are wondering, how do you put out all these books so quickly? There's so much available today on the internet, and together with people's input, that just a matter, if you have the time to put things together, it gets done. The book I wrote on Chabad and Orthodoxy, that was well researched and endorsed by Professor Sarna of Brandeis in Boston. And that was hard. That was hard work, and it's really not even finished. Although I published it, but that was a lot of research. Chicago, the Bronx. You got to get to people who are live there, and until you get them on the phone, and is their memory working? Are they making mistakes? It's a whole production. But this book, Rebbe and Professors, was I contacted some living professors, some that already passed on, but we have their writings and the letters that the Rebbe wrote to them, and I put it into a book. So now I'm doing something similar on doctors. I have about already 32 or 34 doctors, should be, and I had mostly men. And I said, that's not fair. I want to show some women. Because there have been women doctors associated with the Chabad or the Rebbe over the years, and it's important for today's generation to see that. So I started to think about which women do I know, and over the years, and I came up with a few, and then I started to look at the internet, and I came across a few interesting articles about people. And one in particular caught my attention. I can't say much because it's sensitive stuff. But basically, honesty is so important. And over my 40 years in the rabbinate and doing this type of work, I have had times when people lied to me and fooled me when it came to important information that was relative to Judaism. I'm speaking very general because I have to be careful. And in today's world, after you hear stories of Orthodox people who dressed like Orthodox people, and then they were caught to be missionaries, or people who, tell their rabbis that they are Kohanim, and they're not Kohanim, and things like that, this is something that we have to be very careful of, and it's become just more and more. And why? And what do people do? They move around the country. They move to place. They put on new names on themselves and new identities so that people shouldn't catch them. Well, good researchers like myself can catch these people if I'm put on the job. And it's not about catching people. It's about, knowing the truth and being honest so people aren't misled. And I remember the 1970s, when the Rebbe spoke about who is a Jew, mi Yehudi, and the Rebbe was the only Rebbe and the only Gadol and the only rabbi who spoke about it almost every Farbrengen, screamed about it, was livid, all in a respectful way, not involving, lashon hara. He never said names. But I recall as a teenager standing at these Farbrengens, and I didn't really understand the details because I wasn't I wasn't involved with Israeli politics. And the Rebbe would say over and over that all they're looking for is a benkel. A benkel is the Yiddish word for a chair. They want to have a chair in the Knesset. They want to have a vote. And they will vote and say things that are contrary to halacha as long as they could get another seat for their party. I mean, I remember such, and I'm telling you, there were Farbrengens when the Rebbe could speak a half an hour to an hour about this. And like my friends and I and many, many others, like we didn't really relate to it. We didn't understand like what's going on over here. But he was in such pain of these issues. And what did it bring? And what was another thing that he said? He said that the who is a Jew issue, if not corrected, will impact children of Rosh Yeshiva. I remember the Rebbe saying that. Where they will meet, all kinds of people, and they'll want to get married, and they'll get married, and later on it'll be revealed that they didn't have a proper Jewish conversion, an Orthodox conversion. And if you think the Rebbe was pipe dreaming, he wasn't, because it happened back already in the 70s and the 80s. And I don't remember the name, but we know there was a Rosh Hashiva whose son or daughter married someone like that, and there was that issue. I myself, when I was in Marin County on Shlichus over there, I'll never forget, someone who started to come to shul. He jogged to shul on the highway, on the 101 in California. It's an 8-lane highway. He jogged for, I think, 8 miles or 12 miles. He jogged. And I asked a halachic question by a Rav, a Pesach, and he said that you need to trust him. That he says he came Shabbos. He came Friday. He dropped off his Shabbos clothing in the Chabad house. He jogged Shabbos, was sweaty, and then he changed. Okay. Gewaldig, right? How many people could do that? Very few. What?
There's no problem.
No, not really, because there was houses all along the side. Anyway, he tells me he's a Kohen. Okay, I'm very happy. I didn't have any Kohanim. To have a Kohen, that's beautiful. I can give him an aliyah. Well, I shortly found out that his wife isn't Jewish. I'm a frum guy. I try to keep the halacha. I'm from the old stock. What am I going to do here? Well, after much discussion with other rabbanim and this and that, there's no way out except in a nice way say I can't give you a aliyah anymore. Because as a Kohen, you're living with a non-Jew, it's your decision, but I'm bound by halacha. I can't give you an aliyah, and I can't let you do duchening to bless the people on Yom Tov when we do Birchas Kohanim. I would love to. He was very upset about that, but he understood. So he comes back to me and he says, his kahuna is invalid. I said, why is your kahuna status, why is your status as a Kohen invalid? He says, because he invalidated it years ago, making a decision that he's marrying this lady, knowing that she's not Jewish, and he has a right to invalidate his kahuna. And this is a very big question in halacha. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who we discussed yesterday, has a tshuva, has a response on this, and several and many other rabbonim. And it's a big question. It's a big question. And at the end, I believe they say that you if indeed you could invalidate your kahuna. Okay, so if you invalidate your kahuna, but you're not a kohen, so you're not a kohen, no problem. Anyway, why am I telling you this? Because he didn't
Sounds
wasn't
like an interesting guy, Rabbi.
what?
He sounds like a very interesting guy.
Yeah. He was, and I think he's now in Israel, and he is, but he tried misleading me. Like, why are you misleading me? Why are you misleading me? What are you hacking a chinik? Let's have an open conversation. Of course, people, are uncomfortable. But the rabbi, you tell him privacy. The rabbi is not going to embarrass you, God forbid. He's going to, on the contrary, protect you and your family years later. And this is what I say. By divulging to a rabbi or a leader this important information, it protects your family, your children and grandchildren later on, whatever the issue is, whether it's divorce or conversion and abuse. There's all kinds of issues. But what I'm finding is today, more and more people. I mean, I had some experiences, I'm not going to go into it, in Bet Shemesh. I had one major experience there that I was the one who blew the whistle on and put it all together, whilst the rabbis over there of you guys didn't know what's going on. And I, as a visitor, I smelled the coffee. And
With missionaries?
no, not missionaries. No. Again, I don't want to. It's private things. I can't say much. But what I'm saying is that we live today in a world that people are hiding things, and it's so easy today to move from place to place, to change your names, to get a new identity, and you have no idea who the person is and what's going on, and it's a balagan. So I share this with you, not just to get it off my chest, which is also helpful, but also to bring to the attention that in a respectful way, without busha, without embarrassing people and lashon hara and gossip and all that, we have to sit with people and explain that it's in your best interest to share with someone the real information so that we could build a healthy community. I mean, with missionaries, that's not even a question. That's out of the pale. That's beyond the pale. That's go to your people and go. That. But I'm saying other issues of conversion and divorces and abuse and on and on. I heard some. I'm telling you, when I was there in Bet Shemesh, I heard some things besides this other things, and it's like wow. Moshe and I have discussed it, how, not names, just the idea. We discussed, how people come to Eretz Yisrael and they create a new life, but yet there's issues. So okay, we all have issues. We understand that. But be careful not to allow that to hurt other people. So how that's relevant to the mimer, I don't really know, except that it's chametz. This is chametz. That's a chametz. The night of the 14th, you have to search for chametz. Searching for chametz is searching in your own heart of hearts what's going on. You only need 1 minute, and then we got to start learning. Go ahead.
Yeah, really. No, I'm only bringing this up because you brought it up, and he specifically mentioned Beit Shemesh. So I can tell you here in Beit Shemesh, 2 cases that what you're talking about I'm aware of. It's a very big problem when you have a lot of people coming from all over, and you can't check the backgrounds. Very, very hard to check the background of people where they're coming from, especially when people who are not religious and then all of a sudden come to Israel and they're religious. So very difficult to find, if you need to find out for certain reasons. And I found out one time the FBI came in the middle of the night and did a raid in one of the neighborhoods here in Ramat Beit Shemesh. In the middle of the night, the guy was arrested by the FBI. In FBI suits they came. That's how I knew it was FBI. And this was a guy that davened in the Kalbach shul, and it was he wasn't there long. He had actually davened in a few places, but that was one case. And then we had this case of the missionary, the guy that was in Yerushalayim.
Oh yeah.
One of his disciples wound up in our shul for a little bit, and the way that we caught him was at a seder. He came to a Pesach seder. One of the guys in the shul hosted him, and he said something was really off about it. And him and his wife looked at each other and said, something is off, and that's how, they had other organizations that are looking into it. But it's a very, very big problem because on one hand, you want to be accepting of everybody. On the other hand, if you're too accepting, then, you don't know, you don't know what to do. You don't know if to accept the person. I gave this guy an aliyah. Like this guy, he said he was a Levi. I gave him a Levi. And he knew how to say the brachas and everything.
Yeah.
So, I know exactly what you're saying.
Right. And it's impossible to know everything. But kabdeu v'chashdeu, I've shared this with you for years, this Talmudic statement. Respect them, but suspect them. Kabdeu, from the word kavod, v'chashdeu, from the word chashad. You have to be alert. You have to be very, very alert, and not for the purpose of hurting someone, but not allowing yourself and your community and your family, your friends to be hurt, okay? And that's it. So yes, it is, like you say, how do you balance the two? Trusting, inviting, and yet, being standoffish a little bit. It's in the news, I'm sure, after this last fiasco with that writer in Eretz Yisrael who wrote books and all that. I'm sure everyone's antennas are up. So there's a lot of issues. That's all. I'm just when it comes to you again, it's like fresh, and then it dies down. You go back to what you're doing, and you go on. But it just happened to come to my research yesterday, and so that's why I mentioned it, and it brought back things from, I remember, with conversions in Marin County. It's a tough one. It's a tough business. The conversion business is a very tough business, in the sense that, I don't mean business, I mean, people give you their word and then they don't live it. And I understand there are new challenges and issues, just one more vart, and then I want to really go back to the Maimer. I got a call about 10, 15 years ago from a Chabad rabbi, and an old-time Chabad rabbi, and a good guy. And he says, I need you for a Bezdin as part of the three. I said, who's the third person? One of the Rabbanim of Crown Heights. I mean, you can't get better than that. So here we are, a trio, all kind of, in one league and all that. And then he asks me to learn with this potential woman convert. And I agreed, and my wife said at that time, she didn't understand. She should be learning with a woman. Why is he asking me? But I did it. And that was, in hindsight, a mistake. And then, they got married. And here in Borough Park, the Hasidic, maybe, I'm sure you have it in Eretz Yisrael too, the Polish, Hungarian Hasidim, especially those that have quite a bit of money, they like these projects where they marry you off. And they dress you, and they buy you a Streimel, they buy you a Bekische, and they become like your, what's the word, a father, what do they call them, a godfather, right? And I came to the wedding in a Hasidic shul here, and I could see they're all coming, all the shul members, because they're kind of showing off that they did the mitzvah of marrying off one of their members' kids who had some issues with this convert who seemed to be didn't have issues, but she's a convert, and they found and put the two together, whether it made sense or it didn't make sense. That was beyond me, right? I knew that it didn't smell great, but that wasn't my decision. After a few years or shortly, they divorced. Never heard from her, and I spent so much time, just say thank you, how you doing, nothing. 10 years later, actually last year, I get a call, Rabbi Dolphin, I have to apologize to you for cutting you off and not talking with you and all that. What did I find out? Someone had called me actually from Baltimore who was introduced to this lady. So she called me, you understand, to get on my good side. So I would say some good words to him. I'm just, this is what you're dealing with. This is what you're dealing with, So it's a tough business. It's a tough business. And if you learn Torah, you learn Chassidus, you learn Musar, and you really want to be a Yirei Shemayim, you find a way of being honest. And again, I'm not saying you should go to every single shul member, tell them I'm a convert, or tell me this or that. That's no. But you have a person or two who is your confidant, and you could work together with, and you could be honest, and people can. And then, someone once gave me a file of his grandmother, proving that his grandmother was Jewish in Poland, and I have it in my file till today. Now, this person has many kids, and they're going to marry off. Maybe one day someone's going to say, how do I know? Because his father isn't Jewish, his family name isn't Jewish. How do you know they're Jewish, that he's Jewish? I have it in my file. He gave it to me, okay? I'm just saying, and I'm not the rabbi marrying off his kids, you know what I'm saying? But at least there is a source. I remember another case, actually, with Kiryat Arba. Someone comes to me and says, my son is looking to marry a girl, and her parents were from Eretz Yisrael, I think Russians who immigrated years ago, and the rabbi there converted. Oh, really? Well, could you give a letter? I said, I can't give a letter until I find the proof. I had to call, what's the famous rabbi, I think he's still alive, in Kiryat Arba, or maybe just passed away. I forget his name now. What?
Moshe Levinger?
I think Moshe Levinger, I think. And I asked him, and he said yes. So, and it's come up since, because a son of this couple went to yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, and they questioned the Jewishness of this boy, and it came back to me. You understand? And I said and I wrote that. Well, I could tell you that I heard from Rabbi Levinger this and this. The rest is up to you. You want to believe him? You don't want to believe him? That's all. I don't do a marriage until I investigate and I verify. If someone lied to me and I didn't catch the lie, I'm sorry, just like Yoni giving the aliyah to someone who's not even Jewish, but based on my conversation with him. So it's very important to identify these things, and you should all know, and you probably know, this is not just now with Bali Tshuva. This is now with FFBs all over, because the Jewish world is so much smaller, and people are marrying, especially in the Chabad world, where once upon a time in the 60s, 70s, you didn't have Bali Tshuva yet from the mid 60s on, but then there was 20 years they didn't marry with each other, and now that's really, I'm not going to say completely, but there's it's a different situation. So there are these issues too. I do want to say also that the Rebbe had a very, very Avas Yisrael attitude on this thing. 2 examples. A relative of mine was concerned that the person they proposed for their child to marry was a child of a mother who didn't go to the mikveh. If you look into the Holy Zohar, Zohar HaKodesh, it says some very, very unpleasant things about that. So the person was so religious, he was a Chabadnik, a Lubavitcher. So he wrote to the Rebbe like, maybe there's an issue here. And he quoted the Zohar. The Rebbe, would answer with a pencil. And the Rebbe took his pencil and he put a big X over it, meaning, stop with your nonsense. And this man who wrote was a rabbi, shliach of the Rebbe. He was a senior man, a great scholar. And the Rebbe was teaching him. They did tshuva. You let God worry about the mikveh. They are kosher. That's it.
There's a story that Reb Moshe Feinstein similar about a question on a shidduch, and I forget which party it was, came from a family that wasn't religious.
Yeah.
And the question was that I believe it was the Gemara says that somebody who's the result of a relationship where the woman wasn't keeping Tarash Mishpacha would have bad midos.
Yes.
Something like that. And so Reb Moshe said, how are their midos? Midos very good, very, very fine. So he says, obviously, she must have gone swimming at some point, and the Araisa, she traveled, and it might not have been the Rabbanan, but it was the Araisa. And if the outcome is that the prospective shidduch has good midos, what are you talking about?
You mentioned the swimming. 1964, Lahavdil O'Connor, the Bishop O'Connor of New York, there's a famous, Lahavdil, that big church over there. He was known, Bishop O'Connor here. Because of different issues, he gave a ruling that all the beaches should be closed. It's, I think, 1963 or 64. You can look it up online. The Rebbe asked Rabbi Mandel, he's already passed on, but he was an activist, an Orthodox rabbi, and the Rebbe asked him, and he had a relationship with this O'Connor, to influence O'Connor to keep the beaches open, because a woman who goes swimming there is midaraisa pure, and it's kosher. I heard this from a brother-in-law of this Rabbi Mandel. Yeah, could you imagine? I said, that's matim to what Rabbi Moshe was saying. But what I'm saying is that the Rebbe, didn't buy into these things. Again, there's a difference between that and calling up, a Kohen who's invalid for an aliyah or someone who's not Jewish for an aliyah. It's two separate things. In other words, a person who says they're Jewish, according to Jewish law, has a cheskas of kosher. Now today, the Rabbanim are dealing with it. I'm sure you're aware of this. Because of the situation, everything I've said and so much more, what if there is a chazaka contrary to that because of a given situation in the community? So that's where the shaila begins. In other words, when do you trust someone on the chazaka? When everything is parif, when everything is neutral. But when you're in a situation when contrary to that, so the chazaka doesn't apply. This is the back and forth. Anyone have something else they would like to say? Because I see the time is up.
It's interesting that recently there was this issue that happened in it was in New York with the Syrians. That there was this guy who he posed as someone who had become, it was about tshuva.
Oh yes.
And in the end, nobody. There was like a miscommunication, and nobody ended up checking out like what his story was. It turns out he wasn't Jewish.
Right.
And he had married.
He was engaged. I don't think he was engaged to a frum girl. Yeah.
No, Rebbe. No, they married.
They married.
It wasn't engaged.
Okay.
They married, and then during the Sheva Brachas, the father, the Syrian, For some reason, only then he started to investigate, and then they found during the Sheva Brachas that he was a goy, a Lebanese.
Right,
From
right.
Lebanese.
Yeah.
Muslim, but yeah.
Yeah. So, Moshe, what were you saying?
I'm just saying that, like, this is just like, these, I guess these things that they occur, and it's like what Yoni said before, like what we just been speaking about, you want to welcome people in, but at the same time you have to, I don't know, there has to be some sort of a balance,
Yeah. Yeah. Kabdeu v'chashdeu. And with a good gabbai and a good rabbi and some good congregants, you can make heads and tails of it, I'm sorry,
And you
Chavre.
have two of the best gabbais in town in this couple of
Baruch Hashem. I'm sorry we didn't learn inside, but I hope that what we discussed, was something.
Where are you holding so I can catch up?
Okay, we're holding on page 164, right, Moshe?
Yeah, Hillel, we're like in the top paragraph on 164.
Okay, good. I'll bring myself up.
Yeah. But tomorrow, Shem, we will get to this, and I'm sorry that I kind of, took the time
You need a
to.
little therapy time today.
Yeah.
It's good to
No,
get
because-
stuff off your
because-
chest. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
What's the background there?
Where?
Background here is Sukkot. It's a Rikud in the Boston or Sukken Borough Park.
Oh, in my he's
probably 2 years
in
ago.
my territory. The Boston. I don't gotta have the back and walk in. Where's now 49th Street or something?
No, well, that was sold years ago. The new base medrash is on 17 and 47th.
Oh, it's only 2 blocks from where I live. I'm talking to you from 17th or 45th.
I used to go to yeshiva there. I used to go to that's where my yeshiva was, the Torah Summit.
Oh, Torah Seventh, yeah. Okay, Chevra, have a great day. Nice talking. I will talk to you tomorrow. Zai gesund. Bye-bye.
Okay, think about it.